Okay, so once again, good morning everyone. So our topic for today is about databases and database security. So the question is goes like this. It's your data. Are you sure it's safe? Okay. Now, this will be the database overview. So every company needs places to store institutional knowledge and data. So frequently that data contains proprietary information such as personally identifiable data, employee HR data, and of course, financial data. Since at present, we are implementing the data privacy, so therefore, this will be the main actually focus, no? That we need to secure or we need the security and confidentiality of this data is a critical and importance. So there are four key issues in the security of databases, just as with all security systems. The consideration, of course, is the availability of data. Authenticity is also important. The integrity of data and the confidentiality. Now, when it comes to availability, data needs to be available at all necessary times. That's why at present all companies are adapted or opted to have a cloud computing. No, they could able to save their data in information through cloud. Data needs to be available to only the appropriate users, of course, because for example you are in a school. See to it that the uh, tuition pay, not tuition pay, or see to it that the tuition pay or even the financial matter, no, must be in a confidential. Only the accounting department be able to get that data, of course. We see to it that, for example, the informations of all employee, all the details, especially the numbers, the addresses, must be exclusively for the HR department. No? So that's why data needs to be available to only the appropriate users. Need to be able to track who has access and who has accessed what data. Uh, First thing that after developing our software, we see to it that we have a module for what do you call this one? For logs. It is always advisable for us to monitor all the transactions within the systems. Okay? Authenticity. Need to ensure that the data has been edited by an authorized source, of course. Uh, for example, the transactions about the payroll, no? It must be done by the payroll person. But when it comes to the distribution of employee salary, that is an accounting department matters. Okay? Need to confirm that users accessing the systems are who they say they are. Of course, you need to verify that all report requests are from authorized users. That's why in developing our software, it is important for us to have different users account. So there are certain cases that we have super admin, no? We have administrator account, we have accounting account, we have payroll account, we have HR account, we have employee account, and so on and so forth. Okay? For us to distinguish who are authorized users per account. Need to verify that any outbound data is going to the expected receiver. Most of the time, of course, if we're going to share, for example, our folder, our system or software, see to it that we verify, no, the persons who are expecting your data or your targeted department, no, in sending your data. Integrity. Need to verify that any external data has the correct formatting and other metadata. Of course, need to verify that all input data is accurate and verifiable. So in that sense, what we're going to do for us to perform this transaction, we need to have a search, no? For verification purposes. Need to ensure that the data is following the correct workflow rules for your institution or corporation. The protocol. Protocol is also important. For example, prior to credit the money to your account in a specific company, there are certain requirements, no, to check. For example, in a bank account, for example, if your payroll is in Metro Bank, so before even the payroll master already finished and uploaded the payroll, now the details of your payroll for this month, it is necessary for the president or even the payroll head to allow, not to release that money into your ATM. Okay? Need to be able to report on all data changes and to author them to ensure compliance with corporate rules and privacy laws. So, of course, in login. So, for example, if accounting department log in to your software, automatically it logs, no? So, what will be the transactions done by this account? What time, what date, and the transaction itself. Of course, that is in compliance with the company rules and privacy laws. Another thing is, of course, is the confidentiality. Class, when I've heard this word, I always pop up in my mind about the data privacy. Okay? Need to ensure that confidential data is only available to correct people. Of course, the sales, no? The total sales, the net sales must be within the correct person. If there's certain problem, for example, if you have some problem with the computations of sales, so see to it that this confidential data is only to the available data is only available to correct people. Need to ensure that entire database is security from external and internal system breaches, and that is done by our database administrator. Need to provide for reporting on who has access what data and what they have done with it. Another module that we need to include, of course, is the generation of report. No? As I mentioned earlier, since you are now doing your proposal, always bear in mind that we need to consider all of those things. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the logins. What will be the exact terminology for logins? Class? Hello? Another term for login? Yung, not login, logs. I mean, logs. What is the technical term again? I forgot.
Transaction history.
Another term.
Audit trail.
Pardon?
Audit trail.
Audit trail. Yes, very good. Okay. Class, what you're going to do is, this will be the, for example, if I am one of the panel, I always see to it that your scope or your objective must list all of this. Okay. So, for example, backup is also important. Audit trail is important. Generation of report is important. All of those things must be present in your objectives or in your scope. I don't know the exact content of your proposal because I just attended a title defense before, but I was not invited for the final defense. So I am not pretty sure the totality or the content of your chapter 1 to 5 or chapter 1 to 6. It depends. Okay. So again, don't forget, of course, different users, no? Different users. The database, of course, is also important. The module for the database, the module for generation of report, and another technical term for search, that you will be able to search all data. You'll be sorting, no sort. You'll be able to sort and so on. Mission critical and legal sensitive data must be highly security at the potential risk of lost business and litigation. Of course, we know it. Keeping your data confidential. Although the four pillars are of equal importance, we are focusing on confidentiality due to the prevalence of data loss in financial and personal areas. We're going to review solutions for internal data loss, external hacking, securing data if hardware stolen, and an approved administrator account or access. Okay? So this will be the thing that we need to review or to provide solutions for this possible. This will be the possible actually na problem or challenges that we may encounter in our database. Middleware security concerns. Another set of security issues come from middleware that sits between the users and the data. We have single sign-on authentication. It allows users to just have one password to access all systems, but also means that the theft of one password endangers all systems. Of course, we are not allowing this one, no, the single sign-on authentication. If it is highly confidential, see to it that you have at least 3, no? So for example, for the sales, or even releasing of check, or even releasing of salary, or releasing or scheduling the date of the check, it must be at least 2 to 3 authentication. It must be checked by the head of the department. It must be checked by the VP for finance and others. Okay? Third-party security option. Most companies have several types of databases. So to ensure total security across databases, they hire third-party database security vendors such as Guardium Incorporated and Inferba Incorporated. Those companies have solutions for database activity monitoring. But take note the price, that is way back 2009, I think. No? 20K US dollar to 1 million to secure not your database. Another option is data masking, buying a fake data set for development and testing. You just simply try to test first the security of your databases. This will be the pros and cons of third-party solutions. Okay? So, for example, if the issue is about the data obfuscation, the pros, fake or scrambled data set for use by design and implementation teams. For the cons, it can be very expensive. Good fake data can range in cost from, take note of that. For encryption of data, allow personally identifiable data to be scrambled if intrusion takes place, adds overhead and possible performance issues. Database intrusion extrusion prevention, look for SQL injection, bad access commands, and add outbound data. And for cons, can eat into overhead and cause performance issues, but also expensive. Needs very specific criteria to set up. The last one is the data leak prevention. Catches any data that is being sent out of the system and does not protect data in the actual data warehouse. Built-in database protection. There are certain built-in database protection. So vendors such as Oracle, Microsoft, and IBM know that security is a big concern for data systems. So they create built-in solutions such as password controls, data access based on roles and profiles, IP restriction for off-site access, auditing capabilities of who has run and what reports, and security logging. So take note during your defense, especially during your final defense, if I am your panel, I always ask this one. the built-in database protection. Okay? So how about the password controls? I'm asking to you, I'll be able to handle the password controls. How about if data access based on roles and profiles? And so on and so forth. Your explanation must be on based on your design or database design. Okay? And security login. Pros and cons of built-in solutions. Okay. So this will be the possible answer. Okay? It depends upon to your programs or software developed. Complex password, of course, make password harder to guess and harder to crack. When I was studying about data security, no, advanced database security in London, uh, they give us a software application wherein we could able to crack, no, the password. But do you know that it's too hard for the software to crack if that is more than 8 characters? Because as you can see, majority of the application right now, even in social media, in your email account, it must be at least 8, no? Combination of alphanumeric. And it's too hard for us to crack your password. User write them down and keep them next to computer or forget and need multiple resets. As much as possible, your system, if you will be able to assign, for example, no, there is somebody who depended before when I was the panel in I think Malaysia, no, when I was one of the panel that the presenter actually set a password every month. They have an encrypted password set to change every month. No, I don't know how they'll be able to do it. Actually, I'm asking with the code, I'm asking the details and how secure it is. There are certain what do you call this one? They have a lot of security, no? Then keep internal and external facing databases separate. Of course, again, if you are using third party for your database, for example, in a cloud, see to it that you have an external also databases. Most of the time, a big company has for example, if they have a plant A in Manila, plant B in Visayas, plant B in Mindanao, they have a backup. For example, for Mindanao, they have a backup in Manila. In Manila, they have a backup in Luzon, and so on and so forth. So if there is certain problem happens in Manila, for example, uh, the company encountered problem, no, with their server. So if they have an external server in other area or other plant, they could able to get the exact data. And of course, another thing that we need to consider is the backup time. So as much as possible, they are doing during the time that maybe limited persons who are using the software or system. So in school, most commonly 12 midnight to 4 a.m. Okay? There's some panel also asking that, no? So how about the backuping, the time, the in consideration? Restrict downloading, keeps data in the database and not lost in Excel. Restrict reporting capabilities in offline functionality. Restrict unwanted connection, of course. Again, make it harder to worm from one system to another. Make integration more difficult and can reduce user acceptance. Then the security assertion markup language. SAML is the standard that is used for single sign-on functionality. If not in the use of blocks, the usage of single sign-on. So what will be the recommendation? Uh, will we be able to keep the data secure while keeping the users happy? Tune in, of course, with our next activity maybe. Then this will be the same bot time and same bot channel. Actually, they have a discussions for that. Another thing is, of course, Actually, this will be presented by Chris Lack, of course, and we adapted. So this will be the objectives of this additional information. Scope of database security, why take threats seriously. Situation related to database security, threats, countermeasures, computer-based controls, yung sinasabi nilang Brave. Brave is backup and recovery, RAID technology, authorization, views, and encryption. Okay, so this lecture, you will learn about the scope of database security, why database security is a serious concern for any organization, the type of threats that can affect a database system, and which computer-based control to use for protection. Now, the database security, the mechanism that protect the database against international or intentional or accidental threats. So it includes hardware, software, people, and data. Okay? So, situation related to database security, theft or fraud, no? Loss of confidentiality, privacy, integrity, and availability. Okay, so another definitions of confidentiality or another things that we need to consider when it comes to confidentiality, secrecy related to organization critical data, breach may lead to loss of competitiveness. For privacy, secrecy related to personal data, breach may lead to legal action against organization. So as I mentioned earlier, no, we may encounter a data privacy breach. No? Integrity, invalid or corrupted data, breach affects operation of organization. And the availability affects so-called 24/7 availability, affects financial performance, occasionally causes data corruptions. So the threat, any situation or event, intentional man or accidental, that may adversely affect a system and thus the organization. So the tangible threat, as a database administrator, we need to look into the loss of hardware. What will you do if this hardware loss, or then the software or data? But the intangible threat is loss of credibility or client confidence. So extent of the damage depends on the existence of countermeasures and contingency plans. I allow. I'll give you an activity, not activity, I will give you an assignment, no? You are required to create your own contingency plans for database. Okay, take note of it. So example, a hard disk crash. All processing must stop until the problem is solved. Recovery time depends on factors such as when the last backups were taken and how easy it is to restore the system. In some other company organization, majority of them are having a backup every 12 night, 12 midnight I mean. But for a small or medium enterprise, their backup is every Sunday. So it depends upon to your company policy. So it must be present to your contingency plan and countermeasures. Okay? How easy it is to restore the system. That's why in migrating data, see to it that all fields must be compatible with the previous database application. So for example, before you are using a SQL, and now you are migrating to an Oracle, and so on. Organization needs to identify types of threats and their significance, develop appropriate and cost-effective plans and countermeasures. So this will be the sample threats, of course, the hardware, the communication network, the database, the users, the programmers, operators, and the data or database administrator. So this will be a sample scenario on how the hardware, the communication network, database, DBMS application software is interact with one another. So the countermeasure, of course, computer measures, countermeasures. So the remote client, of course, to secure we have an encryption. So insecure external network, for example, the internet. So this will be the cloud. Another encryption. But even we have an encryption already, the company provide firewall. Then within the database server, they provide authorization and access control. Then within it, they have a secure internal network or intranet. This will be your database. And this database management server, of course, with interaction with the local client. Okay? As you can see here. So this will be the brave countermeasures. No? The encryption, firewall, this line. Okay, countermeasure or counter-based control. What is brave? Brave is backup and recovery. O imagine during your defense, if somebody asks you, what will be the computer-based controls or the countermeasures of your proposal? Then you answer, I sir, madam, or dear panels, I used to adopt the brave. So maybe some panelists asking, what is brave? Okay, brave is backup and recovery, RAID technology, authorization, views, and encryption. Now, the types of countermeasure range from physical controls to administrative procedures. Okay? And nota bene or take note or note, when we say NB, that is nota bene. Despite the wide range of controls, generally a DBMS is only as secure as its operating system. Okay? So backup and recovery. For Brave, start with letter B. So backup, the process of periodically at frequent and regularly intervals, taking a copy of the databases and log files, and possibly programs onto offline storage media keep in secure location, suitable for rapid recovery from a fault. Journaling, the process of keeping and maintaining online a log file or journal containing all the changes made to the database to enable recovery to be undertaken effectively in the event of a failure. And then, uh, archiving is also important. Okay, so the process of periodically taking a copy of the database and possibly programs onto offline secondary storage media, suitable for infrequent references. So there are certain companies that even they have a cloud, they have an external and internal database server, they have another media or storage media, saving their doc data. Okay, that is I think three, no, three levels to secure the data and informations. DBMS provide backup facilities to assist, no, with recovery of the database in the event of failure. Okay. So, backup and recovery. In the event of a failure, the database can be covered to its last known consistent state. State using either the log file created by the journaling facility or the database backup file or both. Take note, what in the event of failure, the database can be recovered to its last known consistent state using log file created by journaling facility or the backup file, database backup file, or both. Without a log file, the database would have to be recovered solely from the database backup. This means that any changes made after the last backup to the database will be lost. So details of how to restore the database from the log files are given in transaction management. The integrity, Integrity constraints contribute to maintaining a secure database by preventing the data from becoming invalid and giving misleading or incorrect results. Integrity constraint were, of course, discussed of the course before. Okay, so this will be the RAID technology. DBMS hardware needs to be fault tolerant. You will always encounter the word fault tolerant. Disk drive, disk controllers, CPU, power supplies, and cooling fans. These drives are the most vulnerable. RAID stands for Redundant Array of Independent Disks. Several independent and reliable disks look like one big reliable disk organized to increase performance and improve reliability. The performance is increased through data stripping. Data is segmented into equal size partitions. The stripping unit, of course. These are spread across multiple disks, and stripping improves overall I/O performance via parallelism. For the reliability, increase through storing redundant information across disks using a parity or error correcting scheme, such as Reed-Solomon codes. The parity schemes, each byte may have a parity bit associated with it that records whether the number of bits set to 1 is even or odd. If the number of bits get corrupted, the new parity bit will not match the stored parity. Similarly, if the stored parity bit gets corrupted. Error correcting schemes stores 2 or more additional bits and can reconstruct the original data if a single bit gets corrupted. And these schemes can be used through stripping bytes across disk. So this will be the RAID technology. Okay, we have the non-redundant, mirrored, non-redundant and mirrored, memory style error correcting codes, bit interleave parity, block interleave parity, block interleave distributed parity, and P plus Q redundancy. Okay? Authorization. So of course, I think you are familiar with authorization, the granting of right privileges that enables a subject to have legitimate access to a system or a system objects. Then the authentication, a mechanism that determines whether a user is one who or she claims to be. Then a system administrator is usually responsible for allowing user access by creating user's account. And we see to it that each user is given a unique identifier. So like password associated with it, chosen by the user and known to the operating system. So the authorization, of course, we have the procedures. The database administrator is responsible for authorizing users and others. So we have authorization privileges. We have closed system and open system. Closed system is through authorized to the use of the DBMS, and the open system users are allowed complete access to all the objects within the database. So an example, through the owner owns a view, they may be only authorized to query it. Okay, so owners set the privileges allowed, and there are also subjective to them. Privileges can be passed on to other authorized users, as what I've mentioned earlier. So this will be an example. Okay, a user group identifiers, the access control matrix, and views, of course. A view is a dynamic result of the interaction of one or more relational operations with the base relation. It is a virtual relation in that it does not exist in the database but is produced upon request by a given user or a particular time. Okay, and this will be the summary of the discussion. The scope of database security. What are the things that we need to consider? Why take threats seriously? Situation related to database security. The different types of threat. For countermeasures, Brave. Okay? Within the Brave, we have backup and recovery, RAID technology, authorization, views, and encryption. Okay, and so on. And that's it for database security and integrity. Hello?
Hello, Doc.
Ay po.
Okay, look
Hello
at the
po.
next. Andito na ba yung next presenter? Hello?
Wait lang, Doc. Check po namin sa SCAD.
Authorization po.
Si Graciel?
Ako po, yung presenter. Ako po ba yung next presenter?
Meron ka ba?
Tapos na ako, Rax, para sa first subject natin. Ako yung fourth naman dun sa second. So, I guess di pa ako. Tama ba? Or meron akong na-overlook?
Ano ka pala, ano?
Nag-report na ako last, meeting.
Sa ano yun, sa data?
Ako yung nauna. Kasi walang first reporter.
So that's why you presented your report already.
Advance, opo, Doc.
Advance. So who will be the next after Graciel?
Wait lang po.
Okay, Raquel.
Oo. Doc, sa ano po ba to? Advanced Database Administration?
Yes, advanced
Yes.
database.
Ang next kasi ni Mr. Rodel, si Sir Rodel, si Graciel, tapos si Liza.
Meaning
Daika.
ako talaga.
Yes.
Oh, si Gracia
Nako.
kasi sa advance,
Advanced system.
We are in a database administration. Database administration.
Based po sa schedule, October 3 pa po ako.
Sorry. Wait, I'll be checking on it.
Pwede naman
Sorry,
I
anong
think
topic
that-
ngayon? Ano ba yung topic?
Anong topic na yun? Data integrity and security. Tama ba?
I discussed already the database security and
Yes
integrity.
po.
Mm.
Susunod po doon.
Sunod doon
Iyon, regulatory compliance and database administration. Oo.
ako, sandali.
Akala ko ako pa
I'll
yung
check
next
it out.
after yung pang-anim pa pala ako. Ayun.
Pang-anim ka.
Who is the one who need to present the regulatory compliance?
Si Miss Graciel.
Tapos na ba siya doon?
Hindi pa po.
Tapos na po siya
Wait
Doc,
lang.
sa
Sa
yung sa kanilang subject.
Advanced programming yata yung
Oo.
na-report ko. And then
Opo.
ngayon, parang ang bilis naman. Fourth yung nakita ko eh. Wait. Kaya tuloy, hindi ako nag-prepare na ako. Patay ako kayo.
Hindi, okay lang.
Okay. How about the database backup and recovery? It's already covered, no? Database backup. Are you ready? Database backup.
Hindi pa po, Doc.
How about disaster planning?
Si John Ray.
Okay. So next time, next meeting, see to it that all the presenter are ready. No? Even you are in the last presenter.
Yes po.
For us to
Yes po.
continue. Because at present, we're not able to start our class by, the next subject, because we have a student who are only enrolled the second subject. So she are expecting our class started at 10 a.m. So we're not able to proceed to the next subject. We are still waiting for 10 a.m.
Okay po.
Pray
So
po
if
to.
Father ready, or mayroon bang ready na? Wala pa.
Wala pa, Dok.
Okay, sige. So next meeting class, don't forget, okay? Don't forget